Everybody groove to the music. Everybody jam.
Tomorrow is grocery day, and as I compile my list, I find myself crossing out things that I don't need to make sure I have room for the necessities. So Oreos go in favor of apples, and I decide that frozen pizza is just going to have to wait another week. But there is one item that always makes the list, and that's cat food. And the more I think about it, the more absurd that seems. Because I can guarantee my ancestors never would have wasted money to feed an animal that could have, in essence, fed them. But then again, my life is vastly different than theirs ever would have been. For starters, I have 2 pets. There is Osito, who is the king of all big cats. And then Chubbs, my hamster. Now, Osito's goal in life is to eat Chubbs. And I can guarantee, if he was in his natural environment, he would succeed. I mean, look at the size of this guy. But Chubbs has one thing going for him that he would never have in the wild. And that is his aquarium. Now, I guarantee that cushy aquarium is the one thing that stops Osito from eating the hamster. That aquarium is a barrier that I've set up that stops both animals from fulfilling their instinctual destinies. That aquarium stops both pets from fulfilling their instinctual destinies, but it provides them with a type of life they never could have experienced in the wild. And although I acknowledge that owning pets is impractical, there are lots of things we do on a daily basis that are impractical. For example, I'm making a grocery list. I mean, I go to the store every week and I buy these. These grow outside. And although I could get all of the substance I need from these green beans, it's much cheaper and in a lot of cases more practical for me to buy these. And the grocery store, that's just the beginning. I mean, because I spend so much of my time eating these, I spend a whole lot of my time trying to fit into my pants. But like the average American, I spend way more time exercising in the gym than the great outdoors. And when I do finally work up the courage to run outside, what am I even running from? I mean, I have never been chased by a bear or a buffalo. Okay, maybe a couple of squirrels on campus, but nothing life-threatening. And I've never had to hunt down a deer like my dinner depended on it. And yeah, those things make me sad. Those things are silly and impractical. But there are lots of aspects of this impractical life that have made living better. For example, let's look back at my ancestors. They legitimately had to farm and chase down their own food. And sure, maybe they were healthier than me, and I'm sure they had better diets. But they experienced hardships that I can't even begin to imagine. My grandma was one of 12 kids, and she was born in an age where having a large family or starting a family young weren't statements. They were necessities. People started families young because they needed help on the family farm or in the family business if they were lucky. But it was more than that. They started families young because losing one or more children to a medical incident was a reality. Those things are no longer a reality in America today. And this is due to medical advancements and more efficient farming technology. But that doesn't mean that people no longer want to have large families or family farms are no longer a priority. It just means that those things aren't practical today. But just because those things aren't practical doesn't mean that we aren't still fighting our instinctual destinies. For example, let's look at teenage pregnancy. From all of the things I've already talked about, it's obvious that teenage pregnancy is no longer a necessity. We don't need to start families young because of medical complications, and most people don't need 12 children to work on their farm. But that doesn't mean that young people don't have a difficult time fighting those instincts. We go through hormonal changes and life changes in general because those are what our ancestors needed to survive. And although my life no longer depends upon those things, I have to make choices that fight my instinctual destiny. Now, the difference between my cat fighting his instincts and me fighting my instincts is that I'm working towards a productive struggle. My life is by far more standardized than my grandparents' ever was. But let's look at what I've gained from that. I mean, I have access to medical assistance 24 hours a day. And that might not seem like a big deal, but I'm an asthmatic. And if it wasn't for my inhalers and a quick trip to the emergency room, I honestly might not have made it to 21. I own my own car, and although that might be bad for the environment, it is wonderful for our economy because I am able to drive to areas I never would have gotten on foot and disperse my income to people who need it maybe more than the people in my community. I'm one of millions of Americans who's obtaining a college education, and although that might seem so commonplace today, it means that I'm getting exposed to a worldview my grandparents never even could have dreamed of. Let's put things in perspective. My grandparents had to farm and hunt just to survive. But nowadays, I can go to a restaurant and for $3, I can buy my daily caloric necessities. And yeah, I make some sacrifices in this society. Like knowing that I'm going to have to work most of my life in order to support myself and my family. And knowing that I'm going to pay into Social Security or pay taxes that go to people that might not directly affect me. But is that price really too high for what I've gained? It used to make me sad when I thought about the ways that humans domesticated animals. But is that really so much different than what we've done to ourselves? I mean, Osito will never roam the plains of Africa or get the chance to take down his prey off of that tiny hamster wheel. But in return, he gets food and a warm, safe place to live, an unending affection. And yeah, I may never get the chance to chase down my dinner like my life depends on it. But in return, I get to be a piece in this puzzle that is our society. I mean, I am going to grow up to educate children that might become doctors. And those doctors might save the lives of the people that invent the cure for cancer or find a way to stop global warming. And if that's what domestication entails, I don't think I mind being domesticated. He doesn't like being held like this. Look at him, he's all stiff. He's angry. He's angry.